So next is the calories section. So this is going to give you the number of calories per serving. So again, this item has 230 calories. It's important to note the point we just mentioned a moment ago, the entire package, 8 servings, has 1,840 calories. So just recognizing again how many calories are in a serving, how many servings are in a container, is a good piece of information to have. So the next section on the nutrition label is nutrients. So within this category, the nutrition label is going to list a variety of nutrients. Some of them we may be trying to limit in our diet. Some of them we may be trying to get more of them in our diet. So between the nutrients listing here and the percent daily value, those two things are going to help us determine what food items we might want to eat more of based on that nutrition label to try to get more things like fiber, for instance, or less things like saturated fat. So a few nutrients that we do want to get more of in our diet that tend to be lacking in the average American's diet are things like dietary fiber, vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. So if you're looking at a nutrition label, these are some things that you likely want to get more of in your diet. And then conversely, on that same nutrition label, you'll find nutrients that we probably want to get less of because of their impacts on health and chronic disease risk over time if we consume too many of them. So these are going to be things like saturated fat, which of course has been linked to heart disease. Sodium, which of course is linked to blood pressure, high blood pressure if we consume too much sodium. Added sugars, we certainly want to look out for that, as of course it can be linked to metabolic disorders such as diabetes. And then trans fats, another kind of man-made fat that is closely linked with heart disease as well. Okay, so moving on to percent daily value. So this section of the nutrition label can help us provide kind of a measuring stick with these nutrients that we're looking at in this specific section, and help us make decisions as to whether a certain food item is a good source of fiber or is particularly low in added sugars. So the percent daily value is there to specifically help us make measurements with those foods regarding our decision. So percent daily value provides reference amounts to meet or not exceed with certain nutrients. And it's based on contribution to a daily diet centered around kind of that general 2,000 calorie per day diet. So again, the percent daily value is going to help you determine if content is high or low. So 5% daily value or less is considered low. 20% daily value more per serving is considered high. So a few general tips in terms of using the percent daily value to your advantage. So foods with a high percent daily value of dietary fiber, vitamin D, calcium, iron, potassium. Again, those are those healthful nutrients that we tend not to get enough of them in our standard American diet. There's a reason why those specific nutrients are on the food label to help us track some nutrients that tend to be lacking in sufficient levels in our diet. So again, any food item that has 20% or higher of this nutrient, that's an excellent option for you. On the flip side of that, low percent daily value of nutrients we're probably trying to limit, like saturated fat, sodium, and added sugars. Those are the foods that we want to reach for if we're focusing on our health and trying to limit some of those nutrients that we know can be linked to chronic disease. So with saturated fat, you're looking for something under 5%. Sodium, same deal. Added sugars, same thing. Under 5%, you know it's going to be a relatively low food with respect to those nutrients. And then the last thing we'll look at regarding food labels is something called a dual column label. So this label is used when products may contain multiple servings, likely to be consumed in one sitting. And then there's also a column that gives a per serving and per package information. So this makes it easy to compare calorie content if I'm eating that whole package versus what is considered one serving within that package. And again, of course, the percent daily value is going to break down the differences with each one of those nutrients on that label as well. All right, so next we're going to touch on some of the misleading marketing statements that you will commonly find on the front of any food package. So keep in mind, a lot of these terms are not regulated in any way, shape, or form, and are really just an extension of a company's marketing message, trying to get you to believe that this food item, which might not be particularly healthy, is actually particularly healthy. And more times than not with processed foods, and certainly ultra processed foods, that is definitely not the case. Okay, so these are some of the common statements that you might see on the front of the package. Again, these are not regulated, so marketers can use them to sway us into believing that this food item might be healthy. So light is one of them. Again, if we see the term light on a food box, we might think that it has lower calories, or it has less fat, or it's healthy because it's light, right? When in reality, the term light really doesn't mean anything, and marketers use that on a variety of products that might actually not be low calorie or low fat. So certainly look out for that one. Another term, multi-grain. You will see that very commonly in items like breads and crackers, for instance. Multi-grain simply means there's more than one grain in that food item. The more important thing with grains in food items is that they're whole grains. Whole grains have all the nutrients, all the fiber intact. Refined grains have all those nutrients stripped, all the fiber stripped. So if a particular food item has multiple grains that are highly refined, then that is certainly not particularly a healthy food item. But again, we see that term multi-grain, and it tends to make us think that this item might be healthier than it actually is. Natural, so that's another one you see a lot. Again, really doesn't mean a whole lot, but it helps the marketer paint a picture in our minds of a product that is wholesome, that is healthy, when in reality, you could flip the label to the back, and that quote unquote natural item might have a laundry list of ingredients that include stabilizers and binders and added sodium and added coloring. So again, natural really doesn't mean anything. If we see the term organic on the front of a box, and it's not the USDA guaranteed organic stamp, more times than not, the term organic in that situation is, again, just being used to create a belief in your mind that this is a healthy item because it's quote unquote organic. Again, so marketers will freely use the term organic to make us think that a food item is healthier than it might be. If you really want to know if a food item is organic, flip to the back of the label. If you see the USDA organic stamp, that means that item has been deemed organic. All right, and that brings us to the term made with. Again, marketers going to use this to paint this picture in our mind of a healthy item if it's quote unquote made with real fruit, or made with real vegetables, or made with real honey, or made with whole grains. The term made with, it doesn't connotate any specifics about how much of that healthier item might actually be in the food item. And when we look at the label, that item that is made with might appear way down on the ingredients list. But again, marketers are playing with that one healthy item and making us think that it's a much greater part of this overall food item or recipe. So again, marketers will spin this made with statement frequently to make us think that a food item is healthier than it really is. And a few other terms that are used commonly, lightly sweetened is one you'll see regularly. It's not regulated in any way, but it's used to make us feel that it has less sugar in it, when in reality it may not. The terms sugar-free and fat-free actually don't really mean sugar-free and fat-free. We'll touch on that further in a minute. Low carb. Just because an item is labeled low carb doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy. It could be loaded with fat, for instance. Zero trans fat doesn't actually mean zero trans fat. Again, we'll cover that in a moment. And gluten-free. So marketers have gone wild putting gluten-free on everything. And again, if you're celiac disease, which is a high sensitivity to gluten, or you might have a low kind of sensitivity to gluten, it's a good thing to look out for. But for the average population, gluten-free isn't something we really need to focus on. But again, it can craft this image of a healthy food in our mind. So next up, we actually have some food statements that are regulated and do have actual meaning. So things like low calorie, that means 40 or fewer calories per serving. Low cholesterol, 20 milligrams or less of cholesterol, 2 milligrams or less of saturated fat per serving. Reduced means 25% or less of the specified nutrient than the usual product. Good source of, so this means it provides at least 10% of the daily value of a particular nutrient per serving. Calorie-free is less than 5 calories per serving. Fat or sugar-free is less than a half gram of fat or sugar per serving. Low sodium, 140 milligrams or less of sodium per serving. And then high N, or an excellent source of. This means it provides 20% or more of the daily value of a specified nutrient per serving. So in summary, there's really a few really important takeaways. So anybody that's trying to eat a healthier diet certainly should be concerned about limiting some of those ultra processed and processed foods that we spoke about quite a bit, especially when you're looking at ingredients labels and things like that. So certainly consuming fewer foods from a box, bag, or a can, again, recognizing the level of processing. Always try to be aware of those misleading statements on the front of the packaging. Always turn that box around and look at the ingredients and look at that food label. That's going to give you a bigger picture of the health value of that item. Use a percent daily value. That can be very valuable to help guide decisions about nutrient content and food components you might be trying to get more of or trying to limit. So always look at the nutrition label and the ingredients list, because ultimately they're going to tell you the whole story. All right, so thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, please do reach out. Bob at thrivewellnessinc.com. Have a great day. Thank you.